So we're going to be doing some texturing today. We're going to end up with a scene similar to this. So texturing for sort of games with walls and floors, that sort of thing. Okay, so what we're going to do is start with a new scene and we'll just go through some basics. So let's get rid of the cube. Let's create a plane. Oops, scale it up a little bit. Put a sphere on that and make the sphere smooth. Okay, so that should be fairly straightforward to get to that stage. Right, so in order to let's change this to cycles. Okay, and in order to change the material, let's just make sure that ball is on top of that. So I've gone to side view to make that a little bit easier. And there we go. There is a ball on a floor. Right, so let's texture this ball. Let's go over to our material editor, which is up here. Click on that, and there's no materials yet, so we press Add New, and it's created a diffuse, white diffuse material. Okay, what I'm going to do though is I'm going to pull this out using this little arrow. Now we've got two windows and create another window here. So I've got three windows. I'm going to change this to the render view. It's always great in cycles. Leave this one as it is and change this one to the node editor. And that's really what we're going to learn about today. So N is getting rid of this tab here because I don't need it for the moment. And you use the same controls, so zooming in and out with the wheel mouse as you would in a normal scene, and to strafe across, shift with the middle mouse button will strafe around the place. Okay, so you can see this object has a diffuse material and there's the material output there. And if I change the colour to blue, it changes it to blue. I can change it in here to red, and it'll change it to red. Fairly straightforward. This is just an easier way of seeing what's going on down here. And once your materials start getting a bit more complex, this is very, very useful. You can also change the way the scenes render and things like that, but that's for another time. Okay, so how do we change this diffuse to, let's say, glossy? We come down here and press Add, Shader, and Glossy. So glossy, all these are shaders, glass shaders and so forth. So let's add a glossy shader, and then it appears here. Okay, and then I just take away this noodle. These lines are called noodles, and then put this noodle in instead. And there we go, we've got a shiny material. Let's change that to pink. There's a nice pink colour. Okay, and there's the roughness as it is down here. So it's nice and shiny now, a bit rougher now, that sort of thing. Okay, so let's get rid of the diffuse and add a glass. Add shader, glass. And there's a glass shader. And let's put that in instead. And there we go, that should be see-through. It's difficult to see, but let's change the colour of it and that'll make more sense. So there's our glass texture. What's pretty cool about this as well is that if I go to add shader mix, if I put this in the middle of the this noodle, it will bring it into here and out here. And all this is doing, it means I can mix two different shaders. So I can make a very glossy piece of glass. And it's got two different colours. Doesn't look very great, but you get the idea of how it mixes it together. And if I change this, it should change it to the top one. This, if I pull it this way, will change it to the bottom one. And you can sort of blend two textures together. Very handy. Okay, I'm going to get rid of that for now. Keep my glossy shader, and let's bring that back. Now let's add an actual texture to this. So some sort of, rather than just a colour, make it textured. So if we go to add texture, you can see you've got lots of textures here. So let's add some waves. So I click on waves. I've got this option here now, this sort of box. Let's pull that colour in there, and instead of pink, it's now choosing this wave texture to show as the output. And let's make the waves bigger, a bit more distorted, like proper waves. Put the detail up and detail scale. I don't know really what these things do, but it makes it look like that, and that's great. So that's if you want a sort of weird rock formation, that's what that does. Okay, so that's adding a texture. Let's try a different one. So let's just delete that. It's gone back to the original color. Let's add texture, and let's try a magic texture. Magic. Okay, there is what a magic texture looks like. If we change it to scale, we can make it look really weird or whatever. Let's add some distortion to that. I quite like that. That's quite fun. Okay, so that's magic texture. What I want to show you is how to add an image texture. So let's say we took a photo of something and we wanted to add it to our sphere here. Let's delete this texture, and then we go to add texture, image texture. So you can now get images off the internet, take photos and place them in, or even create an image in Photoshop or something like that and bring it in. And you have to press open here, go to your textures wherever you've saved them, and then add them in. So here's a texture, it's urban camo texture, pull it into the color, and it hasn't worked. Okay, that we expect this to work, but it hasn't. The reason is that Blender is saying, well, how do you want me to show this texture on the ball? What do you want me to do with it? In other words, we have to tell Blender, so we go to add input, texture coordinates, how we want it put onto the ball. Okay, let's just go for generated for now, just to show you what's going on. So generated kind of projects it onto the surface, as you can see, and it's made some distortion here where it's sort of projected from the top here and through and on the bottom there, but it's got some distortion on these bits. And that's what's going to happen if you're not using flat surfaces. And when we come to a later tutorial, we'll show you how you clear up that sort of distortion. Okay, that's it for this tutorial. Have a go at that, and join me for the next one, where we'll actually be adding some displacement, and we will be making our scene.
Get it, media.